Hi everyone, welcome. In this video, as you can see on screen, we're going to be looking at RetroBat, basically how to download, install, get it up and running, get it configured and start playing games, tweaking settings, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of good fun stuff. So what is RetroBat? It's very similar. I made a video, it was actually yesterday, around Batocera, which is very similar. Obviously with Batocera it's a Linux based system. That runs almost like an operating system, whereas RetroBat is almost the equivalent but on Windows. So you can download it, install it as an app, and like I say, run it inside Windows. You could have that on your normal Windows machine, your everyday machine, or again on a dedicated machine that are dedicated for emulation. So as you can see here, it's powered by Emulation Station, which is kind of the front end software, exactly the same as Batocera. So they're both very similar in the idea and how they work. It's a pre-configured installation of Emulation Station with all the various emulators behind it, pre-configured or ready to go, and then you just need to drop in your games to the right folders, rescan them, and then away you go. And then, like I say, exactly the same as Batocera, you can then do things like scrape artwork, download other themes, tweak settings, all that kind of stuff. So basically, I'll take you through that and how to do it. It's very simple. Like I say, it's for Windows, so it's pretty much a case of downloading, installing and running. So you can see here there's a few different options, but you pretty much just want to go for the top option to download the latest version. And there's some various scripts here if you're updating from a beta release, tell you what to do. If you're already running RetroBat itself, you can go in and do an update from inside. If you've watched the other video on Batocera, this screen is very similar. Pretty much identical, because this is the emulation station front end that you're seeing here. So you can update it online from existing, and there's again scripts here to update between different versions. So you probably don't need any of that. You're pretty much just going to go for the straight install. So you click download here. Download same as normal. I've already got it, so I'm not going to do that, but I did download it earlier, so I'm ready. So let's have a quick look. So here we go, this installer, so it's just over a gig in size, not too bad, and then it's just a case of we're going to double click. Let's minimize it out of the way for a second, and then this should open up the installation program. Okay, so here we have the installation wizard. It's going to guide you through. Okay, click next. There's a license agreement. And like most people, you just flick through and click agree without really reading it. You can kind of choose the type of installation. Like it says here, you can do a light installation and don't add any extra emulators. I think if you do that, it just installs RetroArch as the emulator for everything. And there's a custom as well. So yeah, like I say, you can, emulation is the front end. RetroArch is like a multi-emulator system, standalone emulators for things that either RetroArch doesn't support or simply run better. Decorations is the bezels, and the game pack is again very similar to what we saw in Batocera. Some free games, some public domain freeware type games that include. So yeah, you might just go for installation. Obviously you can pick and choose if you want. I've already got this installed, but I'm just going to install it to a separate folder here, so it's a fresh install. I have an X drive on my machine, which has got, it's got plenty of space on it, so I'm going to pick that. Obviously you can put whatever folder you want, because RetroBat itself is self-contained. When you install it to the folder, everything for it to run will be in that one folder, so it's quite nice. So we'll just hit install. Get this out of the way for a second. And it's pretty much going to extract the contents. If you really want to, you can click on show details, just hit extract and everything. So what I'll do is pause the video here, go and grab a coffee, and be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're nearly the end now, fingers crossed. Just looking at the clock, that took probably about 4 minutes to get to this point. So yeah, it does take a little while, but there's lots and lots of files in there, all various bits and pieces for all the different systems. So there we go, that's finished. You get the option to create a shortcut desktop, so yep, up to you, why not. So let's bring that into view. That's what it looks like. little RetroBat icon. So right, so here's the icon on the desktop for RetroBat. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly change the setting, because I'm pretty sure when I launch this for the first time, it's going to try and run full screen, which isn't going to capture very well with my capture software. So show you a little tool, I guess now. Within the RetroBat folder, you've got the actual RetroBat.exe to launch the actual program itself, but then there's a bat GUI.exe, which is basically to set some, I guess, some basic settings for RetroBat. A lot of the configuration is done within RetroBat itself, within Emulation Station, but there's some kind of like sort of core settings you can set from here. So, like I say, you've got a couple of basic settings. So, and again, yeah, run full screen. So I don't want to do that, and I'll change the size. So obviously, if you're running full screen, you run full screen. If you're running a window, you can set the size. So I'm running my capture window at 1920 by 1080. There's other stuff you can turn off here or turn on around sort of auto launching RetroBat when Windows starts, what video driver you're using inside RetroArch, whether it's Vulkan or OpenGL or Direct3D. But Vulkan should normally be the best. It's the current preferred one. You change audio driver as well. A couple of bits about with the play, because when this launches, it plays like an intro video. You can turn that on and off. But anyway, yeah. So I'll click save on this, and what I actually do is just turn off the intro video as well. Okay, save that. Yep. Okay, we're good. Okay, so we'll close that again, and now let's just go back here. Double click to launch. Oh, it's starting up. It's just gone off the screen. Let me drag that down so we can see it. And there we go. I'm just going to quickly go into the menu. It was playing some sort of background music. I say background music, it was more like foreground music, it was so loud. But anyway, so I just turned it off quickly so I can hear myself think. So like I say, if you saw the Batocera video, or if you've used Emulation Station before, maybe on RetroPie or something like that, because that also uses the same front end, you'll recognise this. So similar to Batocera, there's a couple of freeware open source games that are included, so you've got a couple of ones per system. So what we're going to do straight off the bat is just check a couple of settings. So obviously with Windows you can use your standard game controller. I'm just using the keyboard at the moment with the arrow keys and the X to select and Z to go back. So I'm just going to hit return to bring up the main menu. So you've got some settings in here. You go down to system settings. You can run information, just tells you all about your system, what disk space you've got, obviously the actual hardware, and sort of confirming the version of OpenGL that it supports, the shaders version, how much memory you've got, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that it's all picking up correctly. You can change the language. It should be fine, it should pick up whatever Windows is running, so you shouldn't need to change that. Some power save stuff. There's a UI mode, so you can actually change it into the kiosk or kid mode, which basically takes away a lot of the setting menus, so they can't get in and fiddle and change stuff. It basically just leaves the main menu for playing games, which is quite handy. But leave it on full for now. And there's developer options, which you probably shouldn't need to touch, but you can have a little look in there, see some options that you want to turn on and off. It says public web access, which basically runs a little web server on your system. As long as you're not allowing it access internet, that should be fine. But it's quite handy that you can actually, on your phone or tablet or PC, whatever, you can, with this running, you basically can enter the address shown there, or the IP address, and then colon 1234. Basically a little web interface which shows you all the systems you've got, all the games you can browse through, and you actually click from there to play, and it'll play on your RetroBat system. And likewise, if there's a game that's running and you want to stop it, or say it's not working properly and you can't exit out for any reason, maybe your key mapping is not quite working, there's actually a button inside the web page to say kill the running emulator or kill Emulation Station itself. So it's quite handy to close stuff down if something does go wrong. I mean, touch wood it won't, but yeah, just in case, it's handy. And like I say, there's a few other settings in here which you probably don't need to touch, but if you're curious or you're a bit techie, you can have a quick look through here and change a whole bunch of stuff if you need to. But I'd probably steer clear of it. You'll probably end up breaking something. Well, I would anyway. So yeah, our system settings, updates and downloads. From here we can do, again, exactly the same as Batasera. You can check for an update within the system itself, and you can also pick, wrong button again, you can pick whether you go for the current stable release, right, the public version that's available, or do the latest beta. If you want to sort of test a new build and test some new systems or new functionality, you can also do that if you want to. And then you can do start update from here. Because it's a fresh install, this should say I'm up to date. There we go. No update available. Go up to date, which is good. If not, you would get prompted there. It says, you know, you're running this version. There's this new version available. Do you want an update? You say yes, and it basically downloads, takes care of itself, restart, and it's all good. While we're in here, there's a couple of downloads we can do. So the bezel project is basically what it says. It's a whole bunch of bezels, which are the kind of like the artwork that you see around the screen when you play a game. Because generally, like the old systems, are meant or designed to run in 4:3 aspect ratio, and then on modern screens, and generally these days are all widescreen, 16:9. So if you're playing a game, you'll end up with the game in the middle and some black bars down either side. So what you can do with the bezel or the decoration is basically replace that with some artwork, and generally they look almost like the artwork. It looks like the edge of a TV screen. So it's almost like the game's running on TV screen, and then you'll have artwork right into the game down either side. You know, characters from the game or the artwork from the game. And the bezel project is a separate project which has been run for quite a while now, but aiming to sort of create bezel packs for every single system, and a separate bezel for every single game as well. So it really adds to the experience. So you can come through here and just find the systems you want. I tend to go through and just pick every single one, but you can basically find one that you want to download and just hit X on it, and the option to install, and it will just download it in the background, and away you go. Themes obviously change look and feel. We've got the basic interface here. If you go down this list, you've got a whole bunch of different themes you can install. They really change the look and feel. I did demo a quick one in Batasera. If you want to have a look, it was the one up here which I quite often use, Artflix. But I'll leave that for a minute because I want to get on to doing some artwork, well, adding some games and then some artwork scraping. So if I just come back out of here, obviously because we're on Windows, it's a lot easier to add artwork because we're on the system that we're going to be using. So I will quickly show you. Like I say, in the RetroBat folder, there is this ROMs folder. There's a whole bunch of folders in here per system that it supports, 123. You basically need to pick up your games or your ROMs and drop them into the right folder. So I'll go back to my collection I've got on this same drive. No, wrong one. So under Emulation, my best of collection, which is basically all the systems it supports, and it's pretty much the top 100 games from each one. So here's Mega Drive, so I'll select all using Control shortcut, sorry, Control A, and then I don't want to get all the images and videos. I don't want these game list files. These are basically an XML file. I'll show you in a second, but they're basically a file which contains information about each game that gets displayed. So if I go back to our new RetroBat folder here, back to ROMs, I'll find the Mega Drive folder, there we go, and then we'll just drop that in there. This one here is the free game that was already here, and for it are its images, its artwork and box art. Obviously as we scrape games, this will fill up with the rest, and just to show you that game list XML file. So you can see it's got the path to the actual ROM itself, the name as it appears in the list, the description about it, a path to the image files and artwork for it, and then other information is managed to scrape, release date, developer, what genre, number of players, etc. And as you add more games, obviously now we're about to add that 100 odd Mega Drive games. So this XML will grow and it'll have 100 of these sections, so that you can expand it down. So you've got a section called game, and it'll have one per game, so there'll be 100 of these in this file, and that's what it loads, and that's how it reads all the information about the game, like I just mentioned. So we've got the games in now, which is, like I say, we're on the same system, so it's just a copy and paste job. We go back to Mega Drive now. We could just close and restart, and it will scan it when it starts up, or we can go back into the menu and go to game settings at the top here and say update game list. You really want to update? Yes. And now you can see down here towards the bottom there, you've got 102 games now. So if we go in, we've now got all our games listed, and we could just play the game now. Just hit X to launch it, or A or green on your gamepad. But what we'll do first is actually add some artwork for these, because like I say, they're here, but there's no artwork or anything like that. So we'll just come back out. We'll go into the menu again, and now we've got a scrape option. So this is artwork scraping. Scrape from is which online service to scrape from. You've got ScreenScraper, GamesDB, and ArcadeDB, which are all pretty good, but I think ScreenScraper by far is the best. I use it all the time and it works really well. So then you can basically pick here which type of artwork you want to download. So the image source is kind of like the cover artwork or the screenshot artwork for the game. So I tend to do that as screenshot, but you can play around and see what each one is, see which one you like. The box source is actually kind of the I guess the box for the game. You can have a 2D version or 3D version. I tend to go 2D because you probably get more matches, because not every game has necessarily got a 3D box made yet. So I'd leave that on 2D. And then the logo source is basically where you've got, in this theme, you've got everything listed in the grid, but in other themes you'll have the games in a wheel down either side or across the bottom of the screen, and you've got the chance to show a transparent logo for each game, or a marquee. And marquee is kind of more, it's similar, but it's kind of like a rectangular box with artwork on it and the game title, etc. I tend to prefer the wheel, the kind of transparent logo, which you'll see once it's scraped. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can scrape if you want to. And, the ratings that get displayed, video snap, so kind of I guess depending on it, like it could be like a 20-30 1 minute long video of the gameplay, so you can actually see what the game's like. It might be games that you've not heard before or seen before. It will show you the video snap for it, or play for a few seconds. Obviously just bear in mind, the bigger your collection, the more room artworks will take up, the more stuff you scrape. So you could just stick to the static images and turn off videos to save some space. And things like the manuals and maps that you can download as well, you could turn those off. So I think I'll do that just for speed. I'll leave the rest on though. And then you do need to create an account on ScreenScraper, but it's completely free. And with that, it's either 20 or 50,000 scrapes per day you can get, which should be more than enough for anyone. You can contribute to help, obviously, say thank you. It starts little, I think it's like $1 or £1 a month on Patreon, and also when you do that, you then get some extra allowance basically, to allow you to scrape faster. So it's worth it. So I'm just going to go in and quickly put my details in. Oh, I keep pressing the wrong button. See, what happens to the best of us? Let's change that back to screenshot. Yeah, all that. Turn you off again. Yeah. Also need to pixelate this bit out, but that's all good. And now I can hit scrape now. So just before it starts, you get a couple of options around what to scrape for. So I can scrape all games, or only those games that are missing some artwork. But we're quite small here, so we do all games. And then again for systems, it defaults to all of them. You can say, okay, select none, and just do me Dreamcast, Genesis, or whatever. Or you can say select all. So what I'll actually do is just do the Mega Drive for speed. Go back, and now I can say start. And you see the top right, that's going to run through now and match the game against the ScreenScraper database and download the artwork that it can match. So obviously that's going to take a few minutes, so we can just come back out. It'll still run in the background, but you can see the top corner there, the progress. So we can still leave it running. I'm trying to think what else there is to show. I can't show it under here. No, under system settings. Yeah, so here's where you change the theme. A bunch of other stuff. I think that's kind of it. We'll let that scrape for a minute. There are a lot of other things we can change. In here we've got some default settings around the game ratio, whether you run it at 16:9 or 4:3, or you can leave it to auto or core provided. That's basically so a core within RetroArch. So if we've got the core for Mega Drive, for example, it will specify what size to run it, so you can just let that take over. But most of the time you just leave them all on auto, and it will kind of decide what's best. Smoothing games is where you can basically get it to smooth out blocky pixels. The rewind feature is a rewind feature in RetroArch where you can play a game and you die or go wrong. You can rewind a few seconds and play that bit again. The shader set and decorations, so like I say, decorations are the borders of the bezels, and if we go in here, there's a whole bunch of ones on each set, so this kind of shows you what I mean. You've got the artwork down either side and then kind of a border of a TV, so it makes it look like the game's played on an old TV. And there's a couple of different options on here, some real old TVs, sort of more modern type bezels. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch. Always leave it on auto. And then the shader set. What shaders do is basically apply like an overlay, like an effect to the screen. So a lot of times, obviously, you're probably going to be more than likely playing this on a modern screen or a TV. And obviously a lot of them were built back in the day when we had the big CRT screens. And also they had things like scan lines across them. And a lot of the graphics were designed to take those scan lines into consideration. So you've got a shader which actually applies scan lines for you. So we can turn that one on. And there's a whole bunch of other sort of more advanced ones in here, which you can obviously have a look through. Missing BIOS option is good. So one of the things I hadn't quite mentioned yet was that so you copy all your ROMs into the ROMs folder, but in the root of RetroBat is a BIOS folder, and in here is where all the BIOS files need to go. So there's some stuff in here supplied already, which so they can supply. But a lot of the other BIOS files, which is basically kind of like the firmware software, system software from each console, they can't provide them because of copyright and legal reasons. But I will leave a link in the description to a link to where you can basically get a BIOS pack, which is basically got all the BIOS files you need in here to get all the systems running, and you basically download it. It'll have a BIOS folder inside it, and basically just copy the contents into here, overwriting anything that's here, and you'll be good to go. But while you're in RetroBat, there's a missing BIOS option here. So you just go into here, and basically it checks that BIOS folder and tells you which ones are missing. Hopefully, once you've got that BIOS pack downloaded, put it in, run this, it should tell you there's nothing missing. But you can see the big number of BIOS files it needs. So for Amiga example, there's a whole different section of kick files, which is basically kind of I guess the startup software that the Amiga's used. So the different, A1200, A500, and going down, there's all different systems, all different versions of ROM and BIOS that they need. Like I say, it's a handy little utility. That's just to check that if you've got a problem with the game, just make sure you've got the right BIOS for it, and it's not complaining that it's a different, because it's got the MD5 hash of the file. So that's basically, for those that don't know, if you've got a file, you can run basically an algorithm against it, because at the end of the day, all data is just a whole bunch of zeros and ones. But if you run like an algorithm against it, you should get an answer, if you like, from all those zeros and ones, and that's what, it's almost like a fingerprint of what the file looks like, and that's what this big long number here is, the MD5 hash as they call it. So you could have a BARS file that's the right size, the right name, looks right, but it may not be the right version if that hash, that fingerprint doesn't match. So this basically uses that fingerprint to make sure you have got the exact right file. But anyway, enough of that. There's an option here to make sure it checks for BARS before the games run each time. So that's handy just to leave on. I think that's it. It's probably other little bits and pieces you can tweak, have a look around. I think some of the stuff, I can't go into the games collections until that scrape's finished. But that's basically the games collection is where you can basically put together collections of games, and by default you've got an option on the menu for each system. But you could put together like collections of things like all light gun games or all sports games or things like that. That's where you can configure in there. But so that scrape's still running. If I go into Mega Drive, we might see some of finished. I think that's the one that's already there. So I think actually as well, normally they won't show up until that scrape's finished and you've either restarted or you've done the update game list that we did before when we added the ROMs. So the artwork won't show up until you've done that. So what I'll do is just pause quickly there and I'll let that scrape finish. We're about a third of the way through, so I'll let that finish, come back, and we'll see what it looks like with all the artwork. Okay, that scrape's now finished. You don't necessarily get a notification, but you can see in the top right corner that the progress is gone. So what we can now do, we'll just confirm. And if we look at Mega Drive, the only one there is that pre-existing game. Everything else is still empty. So we just need to go back, like I say, either just kind of exit out and restart, or we can go to game settings and update game lists. And now we go back into Mega Drive. A whole bunch of artwork. Looking lovely. So let's say you've got all the screenshot, each one. Then when you pause on a game, if the video's there, it will start playing the video for you. So yeah, all looking really good. I'll try and launch it. I don't know how well it's going to play. Or, well, it might try and play full screen is what I mean. And you might not see it properly in the capture that I'm doing. So yeah, hit escape to quit out. So yeah, I'm not sure how much you saw, but it did cut off slightly. But yeah, so that's all the artwork done. See, it all looks really nice. So this is the default theme. So to really make use of the artwork, we'll just change the theme to something else. So what we'll do is go back to the system menu, go down to the updates and downloads, themes. So I'll get something that's quite knows. Let's go for the Artflix one. Install this, download. So again, it goes to that download queue which runs in the background. It's going to take a few minutes to download that. And just while it's doing that, if I think you remember from again, if you did watch it, the Batasura video, if you want to browse a file system and copy files across, which obviously you don't need here because you're in Windows, you just use Windows Explorer. But in Batasura you could hit F1 to drop into kind of a file manager menu, and then there was an application section which had all the different emulators. So if you needed to go and update or tweak the emulators, you could change sort of controls or sort of graphical options. In here you don't have that F1 option. What you have is a settings menu off the main menu. So you'll see one called RetroBat. So you just go into here and you'll see listed here, here's all the different emulators which they provide for the various systems. And if you do need to go and tweak, change some settings, you just run down this list. So the PlayStation 3 one, just as an example. I can launch this, and what this will do is actually launch the actual emulator for me. So it's like, this is the welcome for the emulator, first one. So yeah, I've read that. Don't show the message again, thank you. And then it pops up the actual emulator. It's probably there's a new version available. I say no for now. So this is the RPC CS3 emulator for PS3, and I can come in here and I can now configure my gamepad if I need to. Everything should work out of the box for you, but if you need to go and tweak it, you can. You can tweak config in here, sort of the CPU, GPU settings, all that kind of stuff. You can tweak if you need to, and then when you're done, you just sort of close out, and then this will go back to the main menu. So that's how you kind of tweak the emulators if you need to. Hopefully, like I say, you shouldn't. Everything's kind of taken care of, for you. But if you like to tweak and fiddle, this is how you can do it in this RetroBat menu. You can do things like obviously there's an all games menu which just shows all the games you've got installed in a big list. And favourites, you can add games to favourites as well, which I have to remind myself. I think the key at the bottom probably just off the screen. Yes, you've got here. I'm not really sure what the keys are on the keyboard. That's filter, not that one. One of the keys anyway. When you're on a keypad, it's really easy. You have the top button, the Y button, to add it to a favourite, and then also it'll appear in the favourites list. So you can actually build. If you've got a big collection, you can start putting your favourites into one menu, which is quite handy. So that downloaded the theme is done. It's just extracting it. As soon as that's done, we'll change that theme, and you'll kind of see how the themes can. There we go. See how they can quite dramatically change the appearance. So theme set at the moment, the carbon one is the default. Now we have this Artflix one. We'll just select this. Theme configuration allows you to further tweak. I need to apply the new one. So if I just come out of the menu, see, now it's applied, and obviously you see the menu's the same, but it's different colouring, different fonts. If I go back in there quickly, you can go back in the theme configuration and now change the game list style, the size of the game grid, different colour sets, icon sets, the different views, whether you have the background music playing or not, different type of animation. So depending on the theme, it will depend on the different options you have in here. But it's not like you set a theme and that's it. You can set it and then you can tweak the theme as well, which is really good. I mean, most of the time out of the box is great. So you can see now this theme's a lot different, and just changes the look and feel, makes it look a lot more slick in my opinion anyway. So we just have a little look for you a bit more. You can see all the same stuff there, the RetroBat settings menu, but everything's here. Just obviously completely different layout. Like I say, completely changes it, makes it look much better. This is kind of, I guess, my go-to theme. I tend to stick on. Yes, it's got that nice blend of the artwork and stuff. It's not too in your face. It's not too over the top. I've seen some themes that are just really busy, got loads going on. It's just can't see what's going on. So I like this one. It's a good mix. And then if we go into a system, you see you've got, as I was saying before when we were doing the scraping, you've got these are the logos on the right hand side. So the transparent logos are down here, and then you see behind each game you've got the artwork, and then obviously on the left hand side you've got the video snap playing. You've got the information along the bottom about the rating, the number of players, the release date, description, and obviously all that kind of stuff, and then that box art as well at the bottom there. It is chopped off the bottom of the screen slightly. That's just the way the window size I've got here, but yeah, so you can see it really a nice theme. So yeah, we'll just come back out of there for now. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of themes in there that you can choose from. Yeah, so that's the one, the Artflix one. But and then you can come in here as well, and you can download more. And then if there's obviously occasionally themes get updated, it will say here that there's an update available, and you just obviously just select it to download. Obviously, you've got the little no entry sign next to it. That's because it's the current theme, so you can't, you can't download it when you've already got it. All the other ones have got a little download symbol to show that you haven't got them. That's quite nice. The Bastille Club one's quite a cool one. But yeah, it depends on what your taste is really. Would you like sort of the simple, clean interface, something like this, or you could stick with the default. And obviously, it does depend on the type of machine you're running it on. If you're running it on one of the low-end Pi devices or an older system, you probably stick to a simpler theme. Something like this is probably okay, but as you try and flick through the screen too quickly, a slower device might struggle to keep up. Like I can go through pretty quick on here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's how to install it. So I guess in summary, let's say once you've got it installed, the interface obviously is Emulation Station, so it's exactly the same as Bastille. Obviously they're two different systems. In Bastille you boot off USB, or you can put a dedicated device. You could also use this on a dedicated device as well if you've got a PC with dedicated emulation. Obviously run Windows and then run this on top, and you can have this auto start when the PC starts. The thing I'd probably say is if you're going to do that, I'd probably lean towards Bastille because it sits on top of the Linux OS and you don't really have to worry about managing the OS. You just turn it on, it boots up, you play. Whereas if you are running Windows, obviously Windows gets quite regular updates. There'll be I guess service packs. I'm not really ideal service packs, but kind of release updates for Windows, driver updates, all that kind of stuff on a regular basis. So you'd kind of have to manage the Windows instance as well underneath, which I don't know, you might be fine with that might be fine, but it's just to bear in mind that don't just have Windows sat there and forget about it and just run the emulation on top. You want to make sure it's secure and updated, and antivirus is up to date, all that kind of stuff. And you can guarantee if you want to switch on for a quick 5-minute blast of a game, you'll turn it on, Windows will prompt for an update, and then you spend the next 20 minutes doing an update and not get to play. Whereas when you've got Bastille, all this kind of updates that are kind of bundled into the next release. So you're running version 35, you're running 35, you turn it on, away you go. When 36 is ready, it'll let you know it's ready, you can install it and away you go. So yeah, I think if you're running a dedicated machine, I'd probably lean towards Bastille or something like that. That's if you're on a Pi, maybe RetroBat. Although I do feel that RetroBat is kind of getting a little left behind. Obviously, when Pi certainly first came out, and you had versions 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, got the 4 now. RetroBat was the system to put it on. That was it. That was the best one available. But I think it has kind of, I don't know. When I run Bastille, it feels a lot more modern and up to date compared to RetroBat. And the configuration, I think, for Bastille is a lot more straightforward. A lot of it's done for you, so I'll probably lean towards that. Like I said, I've got an arcade cabinet I built running a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. That was running RetroBat for a while. I've since switched to Bastille on it, and I've also been toying with putting a PC in it. I've temporarily put a mini PC inside it and running Windows with CoinOps, the CoinOps build, which is really nice build, real slick, loads of artwork. Looks really impressive. So I'm still 50-50 whether I keep the Pi in there and run Bastille and then just have it for the arcade games, because it's got the arcade sticks, so it's not really suitable for sort of PS1 with the controller and Dreamcast and all those kind of ones. It's more suited to arcade machines with sticks and the buttons. So in which the 3B Plus handles okay. So I don't know, sticking a PC in might be overkill. But anyway, that's summary, I guess, and that's RetroBat summed up. So basically an app you can run on top of Windows. So basically you can just start and stop it as and when you feel, but it gives that nice interface that you can purely drive with a gamepad. You don't need to do stuff on the keyboard or anything like that. You just drive it all from the gamepad, and so I hope that was useful. It's like I say, it's fairly straightforward to install. If there's any sort of queries or questions, stick them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. If there's any other sort of requests, I can make additional videos. But like I say, it's fairly straightforward. You download, install, add your games, scrape the artwork, and then if you want to, if you're feeling adventurous or you like tweaking, you can play around with the shaders and upscaling games, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's it. I hope it's useful. Please like if you liked it. Don't have to. Please subscribe. That'd really help. I'm trying to. That number's still climbing slowly. So yeah, just trying to grow the channel. And the idea is that I've now covered a couple of systems. Obviously, start with RetroX on Android. I've done some videos on CoinOps builds for Windows. Obviously, Batasera, now RetroBat. I'm going to hopefully try and cover most of the top, I guess, retro gaming solutions. So things like Launchbox will probably be next, and then maybe switch attention back to Android and cover things available in there. There's like the Dig front end. Obviously, RetroX is my go-to that I use, but there's other things like Dig. There's Launchbox for Android as well, and there's a new one on the block that's just come up, which the name escapes me at the moment. But yeah, so the idea is to try and pretty much cover all the different emulation options. So yeah, with like an impartial view of what they are, how they work, pros and cons of each one, I guess, and then it's up to you guys which one you pick, whichever one suits your needs better. So yeah, like I say, so yeah, please subscribe. You'll get notified as and when I release those new videos. So I'm trying to keep a steady stream going. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.